everyone, and welcome to the Burgess podcast, the show where we are opening up conversations about life at sea, discussing hot topics within the industry, as well as offering mental health support and promoting well-being for crew. We also have our very own in-house recruitment team, so if you or anyone you know is currently looking for a new position, please send your updated CV to recruitment@burgessyachts.com or check out our recruitment posts on Instagram @Burgess Yacht Crew. Hello and welcome. It's Lorena here, and thank you so much for coming along to our podcast today, where we are celebrating International Women's Day. We are joined by our very special guest, Captain Nicole Fawcett, who will be sharing her experiences of working as a captain and offering some advice to female crew who want to become a senior officer or for those who are interested in joining the industry. Hi, Nicole. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you here. I know you're so busy at the moment, so it's really kind of you to take some time out to talk to us. So shall we start by talking about how you began your career? Who or what inspired you to become a captain?
Yeah, absolutely. So I did grow up in Maryland around the Chesapeake, so I was always drawn to the water. And in my college years, or after my college years, I've moved to California and I lived in Hollywood. And I hated it and I wanted to get out on the water. And I pulled up a magazine that had boats for sale. And I thought to myself, I'm going to buy a boat and I'm going to sail out to those islands, to the Channel Islands. And I couldn't afford a boat, but I did see an ad in the back of the paper that was an ad for a deckhand on a dive boat. I called it up and the guy said, "We're not looking for a deckhand." I said, "Oh, okay, sorry." He said, "Well, why don't you come down and see the boat?" And I said, "Well, you weren't looking for a deckhand." "No, we're not, but just come on down." So I came down. And by the way, my roommate's like, "I don't think you should do this. This doesn't sound safe." Went down to the boat and I met Captain George Staling. He showed me around the boat and said, "We're going out to Catalina this weekend. Why don't you come?" And I said, "Well, I thought you didn't need any help." And he's like, "No, but it'll be fun." So I went out and it was absolutely beautiful. We got the boat back to the dock in San Pedro, California. And he said, "Well, why don't you come out next week?" And I said, "I thought you don't need anyone." And again, he said, "Well, this time we'll pay you and we like having you around. And yeah, I think we do need someone like you." And I worked for him for about 6 years on and off. We speeded up a bit. He made me get my captain's license. I was already driving the boat and he said, I need another captain on board and I need you to get your license. It's really easy. Go do it." Well, it wasn't easy and I was not prepared, but I did enjoy the challenge. So I got my captain's license and we did a lot of Discovery Channel and National Geographic. So I met a lot of really cool people doing some Shark Week things, and I ended up going to Guadalupe and diving with the great whites. And I met a captain on that boat who sort of introduced me to getting my MCA license. I did a basic MCA license, and then I continued on with my US license. I have my 3,000 ton masters. But really getting my MCA license sort of introduced me to the yachting world. I did continue working on dive boats for a few more years. I lived in Hawaii and I was trying to get to the South Pacific, and that is how my CV ended up in the hands of a yacht agent. And I didn't want to work on a yacht. I wanted to be on dive boats, but I ended up taking a job, tried to quit for about 3 months to go back to dive boats. And then they told me they bought a new boat and it was going to the Mediterranean and the Caribbean and they wanted me to run it. So I ended up doing that. Yeah, just kind of I've had a lot of really interesting experiences and doors that have opened and a lot of opportunities for education. And it's been a fun road. And I think I'm maybe halfway through it, if that, at this point in my life.
Wow, what an amazing story. So you didn't always want to be a captain. It's just, people that you've met in your life that have guided you to that role.
No, I thought I was going to be a veterinarian.
Huge difference.
But I still love animals, and my love for animals sort of brought me underwater and scuba diving and then on to working on yachts. But it's just been that was the accelerated brief story, but there's just been a lot of really cool things and opportunities that I've had, and challenges that I've put myself in, uncomfortable situations I've put myself into, that's gotten me
where you are today. Wow. And I think that's a very good life lesson, isn't it? We all have to push boundaries to achieve amazing things. So which parts of your job do you enjoy the most? And which do you find the most difficult or challenging?
I really enjoy the crew aspects. Right now we have a crew of 23 on board, and I have a very literal open door policy. And I enjoy learning about what the crew go and do on their leave, and the courses that they're doing, and their goals that they have set. When I hear about crew that have moved on, because really that's why we're here. We're here to train and teach people to take my job. And if they can't take my job because I'm still here, they, unfortunately, they have to spread their wings and fly. But I really enjoy hearing about where crew have moved on to. And I think probably the biggest compliment I've ever had is from other captains when they have crew from my boat and they say that they're the most professional crew that they have in the bridge, or they're very surprised at how equipped they were for the job. And that's a huge compliment. The other part of your question, the biggest challenge is when I have to terminate someone. And that doesn't happen that often. I will give second chances, third chances, as long as it's not a safety issue.
Yeah.
Everybody mistakes, and that is, we all need to grow and learn from our mistakes. But if I have to terminate someone because, like for one, there is one situation 5 or 6 years ago, and the kid was great. We hired him for a position that he wasn't ready for. His CV showed he was ready. He seemed ready in the interview, but we were too busy of a program to actually train him. And so, unfortunately, for safety reasons and the position he was put into, it wasn't safe to keep him, and it wasn't fair to him or the rest of the crew. But yeah, that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
Sometimes I failed a bit if I do have to terminate someone. So it's challenges that I work through as well.
Yeah. I guess your role is very much that of a mentor.
Yeah, no, I think so. A bit of a leader and a manager at the same time.
Yeah. It's a tough combination.
Mm.
So obviously we're here for International Women's Day. A woman looking to work in a historically male-dominated role, or vice versa, may find it a little daunting. So what advice would you give? What challenges have you faced in your career that you've learned from, that you can pass on to females wanting to come into the industry?
I have been pretty lucky, I think, in my career. I haven't faced... I'll go on to a challenge that I have had, but prior to that, I had no challenges. And in fact, I think that I've stood out because I was a female. And I think it just has opened more doors than I've had shut doors. And if there are shut doors, maybe I didn't notice. And maybe there were people along the way that thought differently of me, but I didn't notice it, or maybe it was there, but I just didn't pay attention to it. Not that I walk around in my own happy bubble, but I wouldn't want to manifest on the negativity. And I do think that I've, haven't jumped into things trying to prove myself and saying that I'm the best, and I'm not. And there's plenty of captains out there that know a lot more than me. And there's first officers and engineers and chefs and chief stews that know more than me. But we all work together as a team. I have had a challenge, but I don't think it's particular to just women. But I'm a mother of 2. I'm a wife, and I've got a border terrier, a little dog at home. But that, I think, is the biggest challenge, is working with the family at home and being away from them at certain times. That is difficult. But anytime I've interviewed with an owner, they know that the most important thing to me is communication between the boss and I, and communication that I can pass on to the crew. So as long as that's clear, then I can be successful. The minute that's not clear, then that would not be a very successful program for myself. or the crew. And I do think those are the programs that fail. I have seen some issues being a mother, and even some career agents that I've worked with over the years, they've told me, this really isn't an industry for mothers. A boss that I worked for, when I was on maternity leave, I got a letter saying, we're going to keep the captain that's on board because now that you're a mother, you've probably realized this isn't the industry for you, and that's not going to work. And, I was shocked, as many would be. And I said, this is illegal. And not that I would have done anything about that because I was building my career at that point. And they, eventually said, no, we want you to be the captain, kind of changed their position. But in the end, it didn't end up working out with them. But it opened so many other doors leaving that company that I wouldn't be where I am now if I stuck with that program.
Yeah.
And sometimes you learn the most from the bad boats that you've been on. Yeah. I was on a dive that broke down all the time. It was busy. The only downtime it ever had is when it did its annuals once a year. But we were back-to-back trips, and that thing always had a generator down, always had a fuel clog, always had water maker issues. We had to keep going, but I learned a lot working on that boat.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's the challenges that teaches us the best lessons. But that is worrying, isn't it? That we're still in an industry which assumes that once a mother has, a woman has a child, that they're not interested in working anymore, or that the father may not be the person to look after the child, or there's always an assumption that it's the woman that wants to stay at home and look after children and not have a career. Or it's frightening, isn't it, that people still think like that.
Yeah, I mean, my husband deserves props. What he's doing is 10 times harder than what I'm doing, and what he's given up, because he's an incredible captain and engineer and so smart. But what he's given up for me so I could reach my goals is, it's amazing.
That's beautiful. It's a sign of a good team.
Yes, but I get to use his engineering skills at home. He's building all types for us.
We actually did one of the first podcasts we did was about the wrench of leaving family behind when going to sea, and it was actually for International Men's Day, and it was with two of our yacht managers. They're talking about their time at sea and how hard it was to leave their family at home, and the switching of hats, from working on board the yacht to being at home, and that transition period that's needed to adjust to both lifestyles. It was a really, really interesting conversation. A lot of things that, we didn't really think about before. So, yeah, it's a tough life, but it's a rewarding one.
Yeah, I mean, my husband's very strong to do what he does and to look after the kids when I'm not there. It's not easy, and for the women that do it, it's not an easy job. It's not an easy job for anyone.
No, but like you said, communication. I think that's what the main message from the last podcast was. Communication is the most important thing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm very lucky with my last two positions. The only reason I left my last boat is because it sold, and I was pregnant at the time and told the new owners, and they were going to keep me on rotation. It wouldn't have quite been the program for me, but after I had my baby, I did reach back out to them, and it was right when COVID hit, and they said, with this uncertainty, we're not going to go into a rotational position. But it's opened up the door for me to then move on to my biggest boat, which is what I'm on now. It's a 70 meter, and I manage the fishing boat as well. And it's a private boat. It's my first private boat, fully private boat, and it's great. The communication between both my current boss and my last boss were not normal for the industry, really.
Yeah,
it's really, really great.
Good.
And the prior boat was a charter boat too, but we had most of our summer charters booked early in the winter time, so I was able to find a nice location in the south of France or Italy, wherever the boat was going to be, for the nanny and our baby.
Wow.
Happen with proper planning.
Yeah. Well, last month we began our series on diversity, which I'm pleased to say is a growing topic within the yachting industry. What steps do you think we need to make in the yachting industry to become more diverse and inclusive? Do you think, for example, a career at sea is easily accessible to women?
I think it is, but like I had said previously, I've just had a lot of, I don't know if it's just luck or if I've turned a blind eye to the negativity, but I think so. And I think probably some of the women prior to me, that I know probably 3 or 4 women that are older than me that have been in this industry obviously longer, and they did not have it as easy. But I think times are changing. We always have one female deckhand on deck, and we haven't had any issues looking when we've gone to hire. And we've gotten some really great girls. Right now, the current girl that we have, she fits right in, just like she's one of the guys, but she's not. She's absolutely beautiful and very girly, but she works on deck with the boys, and she holds her own. She's very smart.
And does she have aspirations to become captain, or is she just starting out and not sure?
She's just starting. Yeah. She's this is her first boat, and I love that. We've got a program that is clear enough and not necessarily slow, but just very there's great communication, so we know what we need to plan for. And we were able to bring on a few very green crew that it was their first boat, and they've all been successful because we've had proper leadership from the chief officer, second officer, third, and down the chain, and people, a lot of longevity to be able to train the new crew up. But she also came from dive boats, so we've got a little connection there.
It must be very inspiring for her to have you as captain on board her boat, to see that as a female there are no boundaries anymore. You can reach the top.
Yeah, I get that from the crew every now and then, but it can be, I think, to find a proper leader it's really difficult. There's a lot of crew that become captains and they maybe not so much deserve it, but it's definitely not a privilege. It's something you need to work hard towards.
Absolutely.
After this podcast, I've got a leadership training that I'm doing, and that's running twice a week until the middle of May. And I feel like I'm a strong leader and I care a lot for the crew, but I don't know everything, and I never will. So continuing to strive on and learn what I can do to be a better captain is really important. And I think that male or female, if you find a captain that actually cares about you and that you feel comfortable talking to and learning from, then you're lucky, because there's some really good ones out there, but there's some really bad ones. So I think selfishly we all need to put ourselves first and pick the role and stay on the boats that we are learning from, and don't just stick it out. If it's not a great position, don't stick it out, because the grass can be greener on the other side.
No, absolutely. So this might be a little bit of a cheesy question, but it's one that I enjoy asking. Is what is the proudest moment of your career?
Well, I kind of touched on it a bit. I have 2 when I find that crew have moved on to successfully onto other boats, or when I've had captains just call me and say, hey, we've gotten such and such from your boat. I'm not calling for a reference. I'm just calling to tell you that they were incredible in the bridge, and their bridge etiquette was really amazing. And that makes me really proud. And recently, when I joined the boat that I'm on now, it's a Lursen. And I found out that I was the first woman to ever captain a Lursen. And I couldn't believe that. And when I was told that by one of the guys at Lursen, I said, will you fact check that? I cannot believe that. And they did. They went back and they fact checked it. And I thought that was really cool. Wow. And that's definitely something to be proud of. And shocking, though, because all the boats that they built and the years that they've been around, and all the girls that are growing up in this industry, and the different there's a lot of girls in command now. I found that very shocking. So I guess that's a record that I'll always get to hold.
Yeah, no, congratulations. That's incredible. And leading the charge, Nicole. So to finish up, what advice would you give a female deckhand or junior officer who aspires to be a captain?
Probably a little bit of what I touched on, just not, if there is negativity, just move on from it. And what I mean, move on from the boat if it's a bad program. But I think one of the reasons why I have been successful is I didn't ever feel like I had to prove myself. I grew up a farm girl. I grew up riding horses, showing cows, and I was always one of the boys. So hanging out with the males on deck wasn't anything different for me, for my day-to-day life. So I just came in and I worked and I learned as much as possible. And I had no problem, and I still have no problem admitting what I don't know. If the engineers are talking to me in a different language, and what I mean, if I don't understand what they're talking about, I have no issue asking them. The chief officer, if he's telling me something that I'm not understanding, I don't have an issue asking. And not knowing and being able to admit that you don't know something is, I think that's just as golden as having all the information. Being able to be vulnerable and learn.
Absolutely. Wow. It's a good life lesson there for us all, I think. So thank you so much, Nicole. It's been a real honour to have you on the show. Thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedule. And yeah, hope to speak to you again soon.
Great. Thank you.